Okay guys, welcome back. It's been quite a while since I made a video. Probably gonna have a hard time seeing it on the video, but there is a bald eagle over there following the river channel. So, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. What I want to talk about today is wheat. And so this fall, we're in a bean field. This year, this fall, the wheat, we had a terrible time with wheat. The fall was so wet, I didn't even, it was the third week of October before I got, the clover wheat and the early prep ground planted. That was the third week of October. I was about 2 weeks late on that. And I was planting in wet conditions. It was balling up on the press wheels. It was just brutal conditions. But that third week of October, I was combining beans and disking ground and sowing wheat. I'd sow wheat in the morning, I'd combine in the afternoons when it was dry, and then in the evening I would come back and disc so that I could get the bean ground planted. Well, this field here was low bottom, and I had a heck of a time getting it off, and then we did chop the residue here for cow feed, so I was rowing behind the combine head, and I did get this bottom disc. This was my last field. And I got it planted. That would have been the first week of November there. There was a spell there where I was having to run in front wheel assist and, knock down my bean ridges. I leave my ridges up in my bean field, and they really aided me because I was able to get the ridges where the bean plant was a little bit drier. And I was able to get this field disked, even though it was just brutally wet and balling up on the disc. And anyway, when I got over there, about halfway across this field, there's a little bit lower area, and it got muddy to where I couldn't even run with the tractor and the disc. I was spinning out. So I got half this field planted the 1st of October, or 1st of November, and I planted the second half of the field. It was about November, I think, 18th. It was the middle of November. So what happened in November to us here? In November, it got brutally cold. We set some record cold temperatures for the month of November, and we set a record snowfall. We had a couple snow events, and it was just a muddy mess, but somehow I got the wheat butchered in. And looking down here at the ground, that 1st of October wheat, you can barely see it. There it is, spiking through. Even with the cold and the freezing and the frost, somehow that 1st of November wheat, it was able to poke through. And I was over there digging in the north half of this field, and over there the wheat is starting to shoot up. It's got its taproot down, and it has survived the cold weather. Well, here we are a couple days after Christmas, and last night we had that last day it's pretty much rained constantly, and we got somewhere between 1 inch and 2 inches of rain. I didn't have the gauge out. The weather service is saying we were in the 2-inch band of rainfall, and so I don't know how accurate that is, but the weather, it seems to go from one extreme to the other. And this year, literally, there was right here where we're at, there were probably only 3 or 4 days where you could sow wheat with the wetness. And I was planting even that early seeded wheat that I said that went in that third week of October. The ground was so wet that it was balling up on the press wheels, and so I didn't have as good a depth control as I would have liked, but I did get the wheat in, and the wheat is spiking up, and so the early wheat actually looked halfway decent. It got about, 2-3 inches tall before it shut down for the year. But the video here, what I want to talk about is sometimes in the fall, when it comes time to sow wheat, you have to put your head down and go, and you have to really push the envelope. And on field conditions, doing stuff you don't like to do, disking muddy ground and just barely getting through, with your four-wheel drive or your front-wheel assist running. And anyway, this half of the field, this south half of the field, where you can see the little baby wheat plants spiking through, it will be fine. This wheat will make something. The north half of the field where the wheat hasn't quite spiked through yet, that wheat there's kind of iffy, shall we say. It will probably survive. It's probably far enough along past the germination point, when the seed swells. But by having its taproot down, it most likely will survive. It just will not have the punch next year. But the environment over the last several years has been a real challenge. We're seeing a lot of deviation from what you would call seasonal norms, and having a somewhere between 1 and 2 inch rain and right after Christmas, that's a little bit out of the norm for here. And so it has been a challenge, but sometimes you just have to put your head down and you just have to keep moving forward and go if you want the chance of a crop. And so that's what we got going on here this whole fall. There's my beautiful cornfield. We got the corn picked before we were done with corn before the 1st of October. That was a nice thing about the dry weather. The corn matured real good and was dry, and we got the corn picked. That was a dry spell when I could have been thinking about sowing wheat, but even the wheat preparation this year was way delayed. I tried and prep my wheat ground. I like to start that end of August, and this year, the way the rains came, it rained pretty much from the middle of October to the middle of September. When it dried out that first time in the middle of September that's when I did all the initial prep on the wheat ground. And as soon as I got the initial prep on, I switched to shelling corn and picking corn, and we picked the corn. And the minute I got that done, literally the day that we finished that cornfield, it switched back to rain again, and that delayed me getting the first wheat sowed until the 3rd week of October. But it's been challenges, guys, and you just got to keep pushing on. Thanks for all the views. Hope you guys have a happy new year, and you just keep moving forward. Thanks, guys.